suppose we may as well start talking about DEI in the military.
Yes, we should, because it's still going on. And I thought we stopped this when we spoke about the Air Force. They had to apologise for bringing DEI in when they stopped young white men joining by prioritising minorities and women. And by the way, what people don't realise when the Air Force did that, they actually put minorities and women onto training courses that hadn't started yet in order to get the figures in, so they could say, look how many minorities we're getting into the service, look how many women we're getting into the service. And those people were held for a couple of months before they even started training, just to make it look as if they were satisfying the figures. And let's be honest with you, it's not the Air Force that did this, it's the Ministry of Defence that demanded it. And it was the Cabin Office that directed the ministry. And I had a bit of an argument on here with Ben Wallace, actually, on Twitter, only because someone said it was Ben Wallace, and I said, well, it was Ben Wallace. And I met Ben's PA once at a meeting, at a party of a friend of mine.
The ex-Secretary of Defence, if anyone doesn't know.
Sorry, yeah, my apologies, ex-Secretary for Defence. And Ben obfuscated and went off on a tangent about, do you think we just make up policy every day? And I'm like, well, you bloody should, mate. You're Secretary. If you'd stopped this, if you said, no, we're not doing this, it would have stopped. Index, it would have stopped. So what's happened here then? Young Royal Marine has gone out on a limb, really, and he said, hang on a second. He put a petition out, and 1,000 Marines started signing that petition overnight within 24 hours. Now, I've never seen the petition. No one has. We've seen clips of the petition, and the argument against the petition basically said that we shouldn't be lowering standards in the Corps, the Royal Marines. The Royal Marines was formed in 1664. The Duke of York and Albany's Regiment of Foot, it was called, 28th of October, I believe it was. My father was a Royal Marine. So I have a bit of an attachment, my family have attachment to the Corps. And I keep following what happens at Commando Training Centre, Royal Marines, and a lot of Marines write to me, and I've did a lot of airborne stuff over Marines when I was on Tornado and Hawk for training. So, you know what I mean, a good bunch of dudes, notice my language, good bunch of dudes, all right? These are just, let's be honest with you, these are men. Now, if you want to know, it's about basically that the standards are being lowered to accept women into the Corps. And I think the petition probably lent on an individual who was a woman in training, and that's why maybe the Corps got upset with this guy putting a petition, but we've never seen a petition. But what he says, this young man, says we shouldn't be lowering standards to accommodate, he says women in the Corps, but he could have said anyone, couldn't he? Let's not lower standards to accommodate just anyone in the Corps. Let's keep it. What you've got then, you've got Guy Alistair Carnes, who's a Labour MP, I believe it is, was a colonel within the Marines. He's come out on Twitter and he said, hang on, we're not lowering standards. He used to run I believe the Commando Training Centre, but they do all the training down in Devon. He said, we're not lowering standards. And now what you've got is this classic case of a young Marine saying we are, all the Marines saying we are, and senior officers saying we're not. Now this happened in the Air Force as well, because what happens in Air Force, a new boss comes in, he looks at statistics, and he goes, right, I need to improve those statistics in order to get promoted. That's what I need to do. So statistics say flying rate, how many people were qualified, I need to make that better. So what they'll do is they'll downplay these statistics, and they will overplay theirs, creating a bigger delta. That makes sense? So what this Marine Colonel is saying, we're not changing standards. Well, he's not necessarily wrong, because the tests and everything are kind of like the same. They've still got to drag someone 200 meters whilst they're wearing 32 pounds of kit wet. You know what I mean? They still got to do that. The difference being when the male Marines do it, they've been on a 4-mile hike, you know what I mean, in the morning, and they're absolutely, you know, bull bagged, they're threaders. Now they've got to do this drag. And the girl's been nursing an ankle injury, so she's been given the day off before. And it's that kind of thing. So she still has to do it to the same standards, but everything surrounding it is different. And that's what the Marines are saying. It's like, hang on. Now, one of the things says, and this is quite an interesting point to make as well when it comes to talking about the military. Yes, women are finding it difficult to get into the Corps. Men find it difficult to get into the Corps. A lot of men don't make it in there. A lot of men are sacked off. A lot of men get injured and have to go back to Hunter Troop and never get through commando training. It's 32 weeks long. You know, the main commando training is 32 weeks long.
It's no joke, right?
Well, the all-arms is 13 weeks.
Can I ask you a thing? Because they're special forces, right? They're considered special forces.
Well, they're considered up there with Tier 1 shock troop specialists.
So that's what I wanted to ask. So you've got full-blown, just out-and-out, undeniable special forces. For us, the SAS or the SBS, something like that.
Yeah.
In America, it might be like Delta or something like that. But then you've got... It's more than just your standard... For us, the Royal Marines, they're commandos, so... It's more than just your standard infantry.
They're considered to be like parachute regiment. If you're in an infantry regiment, you can apply to go into the parachute. Well, you can look to go into the parachute regiment. The training is harder. Fewer people actually succeed. We know how it is.
So in other words, you've got to be, if not that, you've got to be very close to being the best of the best.
This is a very good...
Like the top 0.0 whatever % of human beings.
On entry.
This is a great point to introduce this graph. You've probably seen graphs like this before. This is just a normal distribution. And what we I'm going to explain some statistics and data because this is my bread and butter. But basically, what you want is, ideally, you want to be recruiting people from that upper, the third standard deviation from the median there. So you want the best. And I would argue that for the Marines, you don't want the top 2.35%. You want even more
selective than that.
Because
so the vast majority of men are going to fail. They're going to.
So this is something that people have explained before, but I'll do so as well, that men have a biological difference when compared with women. Like, our upper body strength is 30% higher, and lots of other things to do with that. It's very obvious that we have evolved to fulfill a role far more related to protection and violence, and therefore we are more likely to excel at it. And so that is why you find in the military that the vast majority of the best soldiers are men, in fact almost all of them. And if it gets to the point where you're dealing with the top 0.5% or the top 1% or whatever it might be, if you already have this biological predisposition, you must have that to be able to reach that percentage as a matter of mathematics. It's not a matter of, we have the standard and maybe we'll see if someone can meet it. It's, we know for certain with the information we already have that it's impossible for women to reach that, right? And it's the same with lots of other things. To flip it around the other way and to make it clear that I'm not having a go at women, because I have no reason to. The top 1% of people in Britain who are the most caring and empathetic and best in that respect will all be women as well. It's just how this normal distribution actually works, right? Is that certain types of people excel at certain things, and the higher up you go, the more important that everything aligns for you to be the best.
You're absolutely right. I saw a great clip, and you actually know some Navy SEALs in your past, haven't you? I mean, the Navy SEAls and the Royal Marines aren't an exact equivalency, but it's not. But this anyway. Yeah. I saw a very good clip of a Navy SEAL instructor bloke, and he was being interviewed by a wokeist mainstream media person, and he just said, look, if you take like £100 or £90 pack, and you ask a woman, pretty much any woman, to march non-stop overnight, like 20, 30, 40 miles, whatever it is, she's going to collapse. She's going to crumple up. She's not going to get close. The vast majority of men aren't going to get close. Right. Extremely fit young men, that most of them will utterly fail. So
it's not me having a go as well, because I think I probably would too. In my current state of fitness, almost certainly. So,
when I was at my fittest, there'd be when I was at my fittest, there'd be no way.
It's not really a debate, though, is it?
Yeah, you're right.
Let's have a look. I mean, now the Israeli Defence Force have 2 battalions, I believe it is, or 2 regiments with women in it. The mixed gender regiments. It doesn't have all of them, so it's actually the conversation in Israel continues about women as frontline troops. It continues. The thing is, they can put these women in because they're not specialist troops, so you can have 50-50 regiments, absolutely fine. The Marines only will ever have 1 or 2 women. I know some fit women. I've got a firefighter friend I row with, and she's walked to the Antarctic. She's, this girl is a beast. She's ripped up, you know what I mean? She's getting a bit on. She's like 50 like me now, you know what I mean? She probably couldn't do it. But that's the kind of woman that possibly could. When they're going to have kids. Well, not talking about the problems that women have. Hip issues, ankle issues. Women do not sustain that kind of level of punishment as most top tier men, and most men don't sustain that level of punishment as top tier men. So we're concentrating on the wrong side here. And I think it's completely disingenuous. And this is why I get a little bit miffed at the senior officers out there who have got it in there, from people like Ben Wallace, to push diversity in that. And what the young Marine is saying is it's going to get people killed. And he's absolutely right. On operations, go and see that Warfare film. If you look at me in the eyes now, I saw it a couple of days ago, Warfare, that film at the cinema. 15 quid though, but fair play. It's all Dolby, isn't it? All right, calm down. There was 3 men in there, by the way. I went on like a Wednesday afternoon. I was like, all right, mate, you all right? All right, all right. Just us then watching this film, you know what I mean, spread around the cinema as we do. But then go and ask yourself, if there was a woman in that building having a drag, I'm not going to ruin the story, but having a drag a man in that, one thing I noticed was the amount of kit these guys carry. Not only their armor, they've got radio packs. There is zero way that the majority of women that I know, and I train heavily with women in the rowing clubs and stuff, most men couldn't drag those men in. It's not possible unless you're a 21-year-old, almost like you're an athlete. You could have been an athlete, but instead you went into the Marines. You know what I mean? That's the kind of level we're looking at, and we're trying to force women into it. It's an absolute joke. And the young man there who's put his his whole career on the line, a young man called John. You haven't got to go through his surname.
That's bravery.
Yeah, it's courage. And that's exactly what they should be celebrating, but they're not. They're trying to defame him. The country, well, basically the Ministry of Defence have arrested him. I won't use that word, actually. There's me not trying to reveal him. But no, he's gone on GB News now, I think, and he's gone on Talk TV.
Yeah.
They took him. He works out in Scotland. He's a Marine serving in Scotland. I believe he's protecting the Faslane, it might be the nuclear boats.
That's right,
there.
yeah.
They flew him down to the MOD to question him. He said, who are you questioning me? Like, they said, you don't need to know who we are. You know what I mean? We're just questioning on your motives. And then he went, right, this is all rubbish. Him and his wife went on holiday. They came back. They stopped him at the airport. I think he went back in, say, through Aberdeen or whatever. Again, there's people there. He didn't know who they were. They were questioning him under the Terrorism Act. And then they said, well, it's to do with your political views. Do you know what party he belongs to? Have a guess. Go on.
I know already.
He belongs to he's a Homeland guy.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, as much as I'm not a massive fan of any political party, but Homeland, I mean, fair enough. A lot of people are getting behind them and understand why. They're trying to drive some kind of change in the country. It's a good positive message.
They're a registered party.
I was about to say they are absolutely there. They're questioning about his motive.
In fact, he says this. He gets asked about this in an interview, and his answers are basically exactly what we would say here, which is relieving to see. And also, credit where credit is due to Talk TV here. They actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Which I don't say too
Kev's
often,
right.
to be honest.
Kev's a good guy. Yeah, Kev's a good guy.
Would it be all right to play this ever so briefly, just so we can hear him in his own words?
Let me ask you then about the stories in the paper today. Straight questions. Are you a neo-Nazi, John?
No.
Are we not hearing it?
We can't hear it very well.
That's his brother on the right, by the way.
It is, yeah.
His brother's got a YouTube channel that builds Lego or something. So
builds Lego.
Yeah.
I'll start it again. Sorry, in the audience, we can't.
Let me ask you then about the stories in the paper today. Straight questions. Are you a neo-Nazi, John?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not a neo-Nazi.
Sorry,
I'm surprised that he's just laughing about that. Actually,
are you a member of the Homeland Party?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Homeland Party. It's on the Electoral Commission. It's a party that's it's a party that is in no way affiliated with anything Nazi at all. It wouldn't be allowed to be a party if it was,
and you wouldn't be part of it.
Yeah,
if it was.
And I wouldn't be part of it if it wasn't. And if it was all the things that it was reported to be, Kevin, I wouldn't be a part of it. But I've spoken to a lot of these people in the party individually and in person, and they are not what they're reported to be. But it's specific.
So he's saying exactly the right thing there and just not backing down. He's not saying, oh, I'm sorry, I had no idea, as people used to in the past. And also it's interesting as well that people are actually able to clear their name in public now, which is very refreshing as well.
It's the only option he had now as well. They've come after him so much. And his brother says, we know what's going to happen. They're going to go after him. They're going to call him a Nazi. They're going to discredit him. They're going to blah, blah. Stop him talking to the press. He's gone, well, I'll give it a go then. My career's pretty much ruined, isn't it? I may as well. He's on some administrative leave now, apparently.
Okay.
And he's gone, right, I'll go and Talk TV. I'll go on GB News. And I hate to say it, rightly so. There's every Marine I've ever spoken to is supporting this guy. There are a few are going, well, hang on a second. The petition kind of lent on this one particular woman going through training. I haven't seen the petition. I can't comment on that. But either way, that woman that he's looked at, or the women he's looked at, he's seeing in real time what's happening down at CTCRM, and it is an absolute lowering of standards. There's no two ways about it. Do you want that? It's the same thing, isn't it? If you've got someone that's been put into, let's say he's a brain surgeon or she's a brain surgeon, put in there because of diversity, you need an operation with that person. It's a common argument. You're going to select that person? No, you want the best brain surgeon. You want the best troops here. And the thing that people don't realise about troops, and I'll stop talking about this now, is if you get troops who are weak, like there's a weakness within the corps, let's say you've got corps full of, say, 4,500 men, and all of a sudden you've got some women are being forced into this thing, or some weaker Marines are being forced into that thing, and arguably they are, because they cannot get enough Marines in to sustain the corps' strength, which means that they could be disbanded. So the Corps is kind of struggling for its own survival, if you see what I mean. Then all of a sudden you fragment the efficacy, the combat effectiveness, the unit cohesion. It's fragmented completely. And when you see, like, your films like Lone Survivor, you realise how important that kind of stuff is.
Ground News have decided to sponsor this video. They are good people, and when they said, can I sponsor you, Tim, I was like, hell to the yes, because I used their product already, and I said, what's going to be a great deal for me is going to be a great deal for you guys as well. 40% off the Vantage plan, top tier plan. plan. Let's head over there now. So what Ground News does, it brings all these news articles in from across the political spectrum. It looks at the biases on them as well. So if I was to scroll to this article here, which is about the UK economy expanding by 0.5% in February, higher than expected, and I clicked on it, we can see straight away that there's 16 news sources that have reported on it. It is a leaning left. Why? Because we've got a left-wing government, haven't we? So maybe the right aren't reporting on it too much. And you can see there's about 6 in the centre. Now, what you can do then, pretty much, 55% centrist, kind of a centrist article. You can then have a read, have a bit of a summary here if you want to, and then you can go and pick your favourite paper down here anywhere you want, and you can click on that link. It then takes you across to that paper, and if you can see at the very top, you've also got a taskbar on Chrome that also helps you see what is going on. You have a read of it if you want. There you go, to all kinds of different papers. And you can also look at the factuality of it. How factual are these things that are coming out? And also, who owns those papers, right? So you know when you're being kind of like hoodwinked. Ground News is the only way that I get unbiased news. And the offer today is 40% off the Vantage plan. It's a good plan. I use it myself, about £7 a month, guys. Get after it.
It's not a joke. Like, I've been on squadrons where, you know, we know to retain this, and the boss has said, oh, pass that student. No, boss, because they're going to get us killed. Not now, but on the front line. And I remember having an argument with an airline pilot once when we failed a student. We failed a female student because she was failing the course. We put her back 9 trips, redid it. She's on Typhoon now. She's doing really well. But we failed her. Well, basically, we just said, you're not continuing. We're going to start you again. He said, but she never actually failed the trip. No, she didn't. But there wasn't, she didn't fail the trip. We start her again, because if we hadn't have done that, she doesn't fail now. She fails whilst trying to get into a tanker over North Syria, whilst trying to support troops on the ground who are fighting ISIS. So this is why we stop her now in training. We recalibrate her and we retrain her, because if we just let her go for diversity's sake, for statistics' sake, down the line, that's not my boss's responsibility, by the way, because he's got his training stats up. He looked good, doesn't he? He's got his training, he's got the girls out, he's got the boys out. But later on, someone else suffers. And it's the Marines or it's the infantry that's going to suffer because she wasn't good enough. And that's why you don't, that takes courage. That's what you should be doing as the commander of CTCRM, is saying, look, it might not be your immediate responsibility now, but you have a massive detrimental knock-on effect. And I think what young John here is showing, this boy here, is a massive amount of courage that is lacking in the senior leaders. Not just in the Marine Corps, by the way, which is disgraceful to see, because I never thought I'd see it with the Corps. I never thought I'd see it with the Air Force, to be fair. And I was fundamentally wrong when I said that diversity would bounce off the military, I said, and it didn't. The military absorbed it in a way that education and health could only have dreamed of, you know what I mean? But the military, oh no, because they can do. You tell them to do something, we'll do that, and we'll not just do it, we'll do it in sparkles and rainbows and colours, and they did. They painted things, didn't they? They painted rainbow crossings at Bryce Norton and stuff. It was disgraceful what happened in our military, and this guy here has gone, yeah, enough's enough, you know, Marines courage, and that's what we're looking at there, and that's why we need to celebrate these young people.
Absolutely, it is certainly brave. I think I might have mentioned this before somewhere, but in Andy McNabb's Bravo 20, he mentions there was a Bravo 10 and a Bravo 30, yeah. And one of them, they landed in Iraq, and the gang boss took one look around and said, no, we're not doing this.
Out.
Straight back on the Chinook, straight back. And they said that's courage, that's leadership, that's bravery to say no.
Oh, we need to celebrate.
Say no, there's a line in the sand, I'm going to get it in the neck, this might be the end of my career, but it's the right thing. That takes balls.
I think it's lacking. I think what we're seeing now within the military, if I'm honest, I'm not saying this about the Commandant General of the Royal Marines, because he was probably pre this era, but he's being led by people who are completely driven by, you know, the common purpose, the world economic, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. They've driven up into the Ministry of Defence, which is, no one ever knows the people's names, by the way. You know this guy's name, you know senior Marine commanders' names. You never know the Ministry of Defence officials that are directing this policy. The same with the Border Force, things like that. You never know these people. They operate behind, don't they? Because they're absolute cowards. Absolutely. I don't even look at them in the same. I don't even consider them to be Englishmen. I wouldn't even say they were from the same stock that we come from, you know what I mean? But that's just me anyway, and I'll get on a rant, so I'm just have to, you know what I mean? But the thing is, we've got these people in government now, in our ministries, that are driving this, and I don't think we can necessarily stop it. I think it's going to be there. That's what we're seeing. I don't think this is going to change it either. It's going to be marginalised, sidelined, and they're going to get a woman into the Marines, and they're going to celebrate it with rainbow colours.
There's also the fact that people are aware of this sort of thing, and there's this YouGov poll from February that found that lots of Britons won't serve in the armed forces, and of course we know for a fact that it's mainly native-born people that serve in the military. More Muslims joined ISIS than the military, things like that, right? And so we know that normally it's patriotic young lads that have a family history in Britain, that will join up in the forces. Certainly my experience with some of my friends, they've joined the forces for that reason, and family too.
And a sense of public service.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that is why people join in this day and age, isn't it? And people look at the way people in the military are treated. They look at what they're actually fighting to protect, and they say, well, it's not worth it then, which is a tragedy, I think, because we do need a military. It's not, nice to have it. It's necessary for the existence of our people.
Do you know how many people, do you know how many Muslims are in our military?
About 2. Would be
about 2 Muslims, yeah. In the British Army, it's about 450 Muslims. In the entire military, it's about 600. So there are people, there are people that join, about 0.5%, I think it is, something like that. There are people that would join. I think Hindus, Sikhs, there are obviously Jews. There's all sorts of people in the military. They come from military backgrounds.
Are certainly
absolutely
for it.
Of course they do, and so we should be celebrating that. And what we should be doing in the military is we don't do it anymore, do we? I tell you what, you see adverts full of white men when you want them to go to war. That's what you see. All other times, and I think I sent a picture down here as well of an advert the Royal Navy's just put out, where it's got people. There's just no white man in the advert. There's at the front of it, you got 2. I think you got some black girls to one side. You got 2 women in the front of it. One of who's a commissioned officer. So what we're saying, we're putting minorities, putting women first. No wonder guys aren't joining when we're in a country overwhelmingly of young white men. It just needs to be said, like, who do you want in this? And it's family tradition as well. A lot of these young guys, I get written to all the time, like, my son's not joining anymore, and I spent 30 years in the army, and I'm a proud whatever regiment the guy came from. We're losing history. We're losing people going into these regiments with a absolute place in the world that's just steeped in honours. We're not seeing it, and it's almost, if you wanted to destroy a country, you start with the police force, you'd attack the military, and it's how it's happening now. And that's why I talk about these people in the ministry not being English.
There's also a cultural aspect to it. I traced my family history recently, and I was surprised that on both sides I've got, martial men, both in Scotland and down in Devon, both in the army, the navy.
That's amazing.
Air Force.
Really heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes you realise, wow, this country's really been defined by our military, and of course.
So small now, though. It's a great career. I'd say I'd join back up now, and I'd just go and smash people up, because it's ridiculous. But unfortunately, I can't. I'm 50. You know what I mean? But I still recommend it as a career for a young person, man or woman. Just get yourself in there and have a great adventure. It's absolutely solid. I do recommend it still. You just got to suck up a lot of idiots, unfortunately, that are going to be above you. A
couple of points I'd like to make. I'll build on, I think, a really salient point you made, where you made the connection between a brain surgeon. Yeah, because lives are on the line. This is not just like bin collectors, and we're worried about maybe the efficiency of bin collecting might go down a little bit because there's women.
Worry about bin collecting.
Well, maybe, sure, but in a very real sense,
I know what you mean.
In a very, very real, direct sense, there's lives on the line. I think that's important. Like, it's really important.
Luxury beliefs just can't be entered into the system here. It's got to be as efficient as humanly possible, because that's how you guarantee that people live.
But the secret, this is what we're not talking about. The secret is there are some countries we're never going to go and be involved in a war with. India, Pakistan, if they come together, we're never sending anyone. Why? Because we're about to have that civil war in the UK. Because our populations of Indians and Pakistanis are so massive. They're kicking off over cricket matches. They're definitely going to kick off over this terrorist attack if there's a conflict. So we know we're never going to go and invest our military into that. What does it mean? Well, just reduce the military then. It's a huge burden on personnel and pensions and things like this. Let's just make it smaller. Let's just cut the military down, and we can invest in what's the next thing we can invest in that everyone, pensions or whatever we're trying to, So we can really erode the military as much as we can. And then you'll have, what do we see where we think we need a bigger military? We don't, because we just commit fewer troops to the battlefield, and they'll be alongside the Americans. When I was in Afghan, we couldn't field more than, it was supposed to be 10,000, I think, troops into Afghanistan at one time. Out of an army that at the time was 100,000. And I think the Air Force was 40 at the time. The Navy was about the same, and now all those have reduced. I think we've got 30,000 in the Air Force. I don't think we've tipped that. The Army's 70,000. I think the Navy's about the same size as the Air Force now. But we couldn't put 10,000 people in Afghanistan. We couldn't field 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. When I was there, it was about 8,700, and we were pretending it was 10,000. And this is the problem. We just can't do it. So there's inefficiencies as well. If you only put 1 out of 10 people in your army, overseas. There's something fundamentally wrong with what you're doing.
There's logistics problems there first and foremost. That's more severe than the recruitment. If you can't field your soldiers, then there's no point having them.
At Bagram or Camp Bastion? Or
I was at a place called Camp Eggers in Kabul.
Okay.
Near ISAF, yeah. That's where I was in Afghanistan. That's when I was there, yeah.
The other point I just wanted to make is just building on the idea that lives are on the line. It's like going for the jugular with the Royal Marines.
Yeah.
It's a bit like lowering the standards for the parachute regiment or the SAS or something. It's like, no, if you really insist on having women in the military, there's a number of roles they can do, like women in the police, or bobbies on the beat. No, there's a number of jobs women can do in the police. Right? Just don't put a 90-pound woman on the beat. She can do a number of jobs.
I'm going to contest that a little bit. You know, I've got family with police, but that policewoman was more of a mental health worker, that woman on the street there.
Well, fair
There's
enough.
a lot of big lads out there that would smash into a male police officer. They're not going to smash into a young girl. That's why they have them there.
Well,
and as much as we disagree with response policing being, young small women or whatever, 5'0", my sister's a 5'0" police officer. You know what I mean? She's been beaten up in her time. But you do need a smattering of these female police officers. There used to be a height limit, didn't there? You know what I mean? And my argument is we can do it, and we know it's necessary, and we can put women into policing. We understand it, but recruitment is going to suffer as well, because now men come in and they're like, well, where's the men that I'm coming? Where am I joining my tribe? That's the problem I think we see with the Corps as well.
I think still, although you're right, it's a valid
That's
point.
Right. I just want to make it.
There's a valid point that the woman can be isn't necessarily there to be tackling anyone.
No,
but still, my point was that doesn't apply to the Royal Marines.
No.
Right, the Royal Marines are they're killers.
Say what it is.
Commandos.
It's either engage with the enemy,
like the SAS or the parachute regiment. They go there because they need to demolish things and kill people.
You don't send them unless you want them.
Right.
Don't send them.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't lower the standards.
It's not
difficult.
Madness.
It's madness.
This is why I'm saying, and we'll leave it now. This is why I'm saying there is an agenda there, and it's driven internally by whatever this thing is, this diversity, neo-Marxism, post-Second World War thing, isn't it? And it's just there. And I don't think we can change it. All we can do is ridicule. That's the biggest thing we can do. Like what Reform are doing in the polls there, we can ridicule those people. They're going to be faceless. We don't know who they are. It's going to frustrate us. But again, I come back to it, and I'm not going to talk about it too much now, but we can build ourselves up and our communities up and be more protective and more looking after each other, as opposed to trying to challenge faceless entities and bureaucracies that are hidden away in these ministries that we're never going to know who they are. Cowards, absolute cowards. Like literally, they're making the country weaker so that they can benefit from it. That's what we're doing. That's all they're doing, so they can get the little diversity stats up. Look at what I've done. Brilliant.
Well, it's also going on in the police as well, isn't it?
It is.
This is a recent story from West Yorkshire Police. I believe you know a thing or two about it.
Yeah, I do. This is West Yorkshire, a bit of a disgraceful force, to be fair. They've had run-ins with this before, and what they've said here, they're allowing black and Asian candidates to apply early for positions before the positions open. So they've got, and I can understand why it is. They've actually got a release they put out to this Telegraph article, and it said why they were doing this. But again, same with the Royal Air Force. It's the statements there. They're basically saying, look, we're allowing them to apply earlier because of diversity, inclusion, blah, 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 blah. And they're saying, look, 23% of people in West Yorkshire identify as being from an ethnic minority background. We'd like, policing by consent, we'd like to have 23% of people in West Yorkshire Police as minorities to identify. That's a valid, we can all kind of go, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Of course, in London, what we're going to get all of a sudden, we're going to get a police force that's 37% white, aren't we? You know what I mean? And the rest of it. Right. So there is that. But what we're doing is a lot of people don't want to join the police. So it's standards. Okay, so let's say we've got 23% of minorities in our latest application, the rest are white. But let's say 23% of those, maybe only 5% of them are good enough to pass all the tests. Are we going to turn them down? No, we're not. And what's happened is they're recruiting them. So what they're doing actively in West Yorkshire Police, again, is lowering the standards. Actively. So they can say, we're not, we're just being, but they are. We know they are. A positive action, we know it's actually discrimination. It's an absolute lie. We did exactly the same thing with the Air Force. It's repeating itself. And the reason it's repeating itself is because they genuinely don't care. Nothing happens. There's no one held to account over it. Mike Wigston left, massive pension. He was the boss of the Air Force, when this happened. Nothing happened to him. There was no one reprimanded. No senior Royal Marines can be reprimanded for what's happening in the Corps. This person here running the police is never going to be reprimanded. So what they do is they collect up all the applications before the time. When the application window opens, of course, these minority applications are there. These female applications are there first. They're the ones, and then every other white guy gets a look in if you put an application in and you see the window opening. You're like, oh, there's a window, I'll put. So again, it's unjustifiable. It's so frustrating. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. And I think the only thing we can do, as I said, is look after our communities and our people and our families. That's,